there's a thing called the female financial paradox. And that is, while we are a growing economic force, many of us lag behind men when it comes to using those assets to plan and build financial security for the future. So I talk about how we're a little bit more conservative, a little hesitant, maybe not quite as involved in some of the investing decisions if we're in a couple. The reality is, women as investors, 53% of women don't have or have confidence to invest, as opposed to 82% of men. So that means 47% of women don't feel confident investing when by far and away the large majority of men are confident investors. Yet, the results show that women are mostly better investors than men. So what do? And so that's the first point, and that is get in the game. And I often think, when I think about getting in the game, I think about the 4-H motto, and that is learn to do by doing. If you're if you're working for an employee, or an employer, for a corporation, make sure that you're participating to the full extent as you can in their pension plan. If you're working for an organization that doesn't have a pension plan, and 49% of women who are working are in a job that doesn't have a pension plan, then maximize your RSP contributions. And for all of you, maximize your tax-free savings account contributions. If you're involved in a family farm business, a number of things can happen within a farm operation where having a knowledge of investing outside of the farm and a practice of investing outside of the farm is really critical to your success. But when I reflect back when I started working, what I did was I put away 10% of my salary into an employee savings program. And very interesting in that it came directly off of my paycheck. I never saw it. And interesting that if it was out of sight, it was out of mind. Gradually, as it got to a size where it was, would make sense for somebody to manage it for me, then that's when I got the services of an investment advisor. And so my point there being the success to building wealth is to start early for those of you who are earlier in your careers and potentially in your farm operations with the some of the younger set. But if you haven't invested and you're a little bit further advanced in your career, there's always a good time to start. And that's, I think you'll find that, again, by getting in the game, feeling a little bit more comfortable with investing, it will serve you very well. Second point is make friends with risk. Women prefer to preserve wealth even if it means giving up huge returns or high returns. And today, if you're investing in GICs, you'll be lucky to get 2%. And so the point here being, don't be afraid, especially if you're younger, to take on some risk. So consider investing a portion of your money in assets with potential for growth. And you don't have to start out where you're, investing in some wild, crazy, high-risk entity. You can actually start with some blue chip stocks. There's a number of them. There's some ag-related blue chip stocks, just to put your toe in the water and start to get a comfort level. Something that some people will do is actually invest in companies that they know. And so you think about agriculture, what are the publicly traded agriculture companies? And you think about equipment companies, and with the cycles, can kind of have a sense of when those companies are going to be doing well. So I know that would be one of the recommendations, is invest in what you know. Final one is collaborate on a plan. And if you're in a couple, make your financial decisions together. So really important to talk with your partner if you are in a relationship, to make sure that there's an understanding of each person's goals, and then to a point that was made earlier around the compromise. So it is, the assets are the family assets, so how are we going to invest, and what are some of our choices going to be? The encouragement being to think about your financial plan, to think about investing as it relates or as it's a component of your financial plan, and thinking about your future financial security. So with that, I'll end and would be happy to take questions.
So my question to you is, do you have some advice on how to manage your initial investments in your business, initially starting your retirement plan, and initially starting your children's education funds, and how to financially allocate that responsibly with limited funding?
You have so much money a month, so much goes towards the need to have, And then there's the other. When you're talking about kids' education, starting early and allocating a certain portion every month that needs to go into kids' education, and a certain portion every month that needs to go, or that you choose to go into your tax-free savings account, your RRSP. And probably what works best for me is if I can have those amounts for savings deducted at source, then I don't see them. And sometimes, you mentioned about scarce resources, and sometimes there's not a lot of money to do all the things you want to do. Start small, and you'd be amazed at what $50 a month will end up accumulating to over a longer period of time.
One of the things, though, that I think is really interesting about your conversation, when you talked about how at times it's really hard, and somebody else mentioned, at times in your life you have excess money, and other times you're looking at all those pots and you just can't find the money. And I know I've been through that, and thankfully we've kind of got over that and been able to catch up. But can you give people advice kind of about how not to maybe get hung up on that and still keep trying to make it happen? Maybe if you don't do it for a couple of years, how do you kind of get back on the bandwagon?
Sure. So I think that I could do it in one word, and that's budget. And that's making sure that regardless of what your circumstances are, that you have a budget and you know where your money's being spent. Sometimes if we fail to budget, then we do end up spending money on things that are nice to have, not necessarily need to have. And to your point around we go through different cycles and times when money's tighter than others, and it's budgeting very, very important through those times when you're tight on money, so you're making conscious decisions as far as how you're allocating your funds. And then in those times when you have surplus money and things are feeling like it's a little easier, then knowing that you can start to put away more, so that then in those down times you do have that cushion, and sometimes you have to take from the well.
I was just wondering if you could go over on how do you find a good financial advisor? Like, what do you look for within them, whether it be credentials or how they talk to you?
Yeah, so it's all about relationships, and you'll hear that a lot, and it's who do you feel comfortable talking to, and so it's not unreasonable to almost not necessarily interview them, but depending at what stage you're starting out at, most financial institutions have financial planners. Making an appointment to talk to them, and I wouldn't make any commitments during that first meeting. You're just wanting to talk to them and see how they approach investing and see if it's a fit. And if in talking to them, they're using words that you don't understand, and if you're in a couple, they're not looking at you, they're looking at your spouse, then that's probably a pretty good indication that that person's not a good fit for you.